Hello guys, this is Mitali Sharma. Now today we would be studying The Sound and Sense written by Alexander Pope. Before we start the poem, let me introduce you with the Alexander Pope, who Alexander Pope was. So Alexander Pope was an English poet, a translator and a satirist of Augustan period and one of its greatest artistic exponent, considered the foremost English poet of the early 18th century and a master of heroic couplet. He is best known for satirical and discursive poetry, including The Rape of the Lock, The Dunciad, and an essay on criticism, and for his translation of Homer. After Shakespeare, he is the second most quoted author in the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations. Alexander Pope was born in London on 21st May 1688, the year of glorious revolution. His father, also Alexander, who was born in 1646 and died in 1717, was a successful linen merchant in the Strand. The poet's mother, Edith, who was born in 1643 and died in 1733, was the daughter of William Turner, Esquire of York. Both parents were Catholic. Now, now I have introduced you with Alexander Pope. Now let's start the poem Sound and Sense. This poem, written by Alexander Pope, is a wonderful and fairly complex poem that explores what Pope believed to be the correct way to write poetry. The lines take the readers through several different scenarios in which a writer might find themselves. Through demonstrations of meter and content, Pope describes how to write about the sea, the lightly blowing breeze, Ajax, camel from Greek mythology should be written. The sound must match the content. That's what he wants. That whatever is written, the impression it leaves should be according to the words written in the poetry. Now, if we talk about the structure of the poem, it's 14-line poem that is contained within one stanza of the text. Only one stanza is there of 14 lines. The lines are simple in rhyme and follow the rhyming scheme of AABBCC, made up of heroic couplets. The couplets also follow a metrical pattern of iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter is when in a line there is the sound of 10 syllables. And what is syllable? The sound of vowel in a word. So if there in a line there are 10 syllable sounds, means 10 sound of vowel alphabets, then you have iambic pentameter. Although the poem contains 14 lines, it does not make use of any of the formal elements of sonnet. Sonnet is a form of poetry which has 16 lines it has 14 lines in it, but though the poem has 14 lines, it is not a sonnet. Okay, now let me explain the poem to you. True ease in writing comes from art, not chance, as those move easiest who have learned to dance. Now, in this couplet, Alexander is saying that those who think that writing a poetry is an easy task and it needs no hard work, they are wrong. Because here to write anything, especially if you are talking about poetry, it's not a chance thing. It's not that something that clicks to you and is done. It's an art. It takes time, it takes practice. Like those who want to dance well, they have to practice every day. The same way, If you want to write a good poetry, a poetry that leaves mark in the history, you have to practice it. Practice, practice, and practice. It's not enough, no harshness gives offense. The sound must seem an echo to the sense. Now, here in this couplet, Pope is saying that if you want to write a good poetry, it does not only need good words. By writing words like sweet, melodious, darling, lovely, sweet words, by the use of sweet words, you don't make a good poetry. To make a poetry good, you have to put the effort to so that the words written there in the poetry leave a long lasting impression on the readers. If the words are not impressionistic, if the words have no effect on the readers, then no matter how good your words have been, it is not a good poetry. So, in a way, he is saying that to make your poetry good, more than good words, you need words that have impression on your mind or their heart. Soft is the strain that gentle blow, and the smooth stream between smoother number that soft is the gentle blow. The blow is soft. Smooth is the flow. So, leaving an impression with such a swift transition is a proper way to write a poetry. But when you are writing sweet words, as gentle as west wind and as smooth as water flows, but their impression should be as loud as a sounding shore. That means that when the reader reads the poetry, it should immediately leave a long lasting impression on the reader's mind. As when water comes to the shore, when waves come to the shore, when they come, way to go. The transition should be as here poet is saying that when you create an allusion, poetry is what? Poetry is an allusion. Poetry is an allusion telling you that you are the one the poetry is talking about, the poem is talking about. So, poet wants you to create such an allusion that readers don't even realize that the poetry is not actually about them, it is about somebody else. Like the poetry should be as effortless as Ajax. Now, Ajax is a mythological figure in Greek mythology. He was supposed to be like he was very strong. He was strong build. He has super strength. He used to pick up, lift the rocks and throw them like they are the pebbles. So the poetry, the words should be this way, that when readers read, when they read, they should be like pebble, but when they throw and it touches the ground, it leaves a long lasting and forever impression on the reader's mind. Okay, so it illusion should be as that the person thinks the poetry is about them, and the words should be, when read, the words are as light as pebble, but when understood are as heavy as a rock. That way your words should be. See, it's not an easy task to write a poetry, doing everything, and it seems that it's very easy to write a poetry. No, it is not. Now, in the next couplet, Alexander is saying, not so when swift camel scouts the plain, flies over the unbending corn, and skims along the main. Hear how Timotheus varied lay surprise, and bid alternate passion fall and rise. Now here, in this stanza, in these 4 lines, Alexander is saying that your words should be swift. It should be snap. It should just take the moment of snapping to understand. But it should leave an everlasting impression. Like when Camille, again a mythological figure of Greek, she is a virgin queen whose movement were so swift and so impressionless, means that when she used to move, she has a super speed. Like, you must have seen Flash. If not seen, you must have heard about him. He has a super lightning speed. The same way, Camille is said, like it is said that she had a super speed. Her speed was such that when she used to move through the cultivation of corn, through the land where corn is corn is produced, not a single blade of corn is moved, and she is out of the field already. Even the corn never realized that Camille has passed through them. That was her speed. So the word should be as swift, that without even acknowledging that they are reading, without the knowledge of reader that they have read such big words, such deep meaning words, it's there in their mind all over. Isn't it happen with us when in the morning when we hear some music or hear a song or a line or two, even a word or two, if we hear, the entire day the word goes on, the song goes on into your mind. The same way a pope want a poet to write his words, that without even readers knowing, it is there in their mind subconsciously going on, reminding the reader about the poet who has written the poetry. This is the way you leave your mark in the history, not with your face, but with your words. A very deep meaning poem by Alexander Pope. Hear how Timotheus varied lay surprise, and bid alternate passion fall and rise. Now here he is talking about Timotheus, another Greek poet. Now he was real. Timotheus is a real poet. He was a Greek poet. It's not like the mythological character Pope has used in the form of Ajax and Camille. Its Timotheus was a real Greek poet. His poems were surprising and often contained something unexpected. So should a poem of other poets. The poem, though it seems easy, at the end it should give something long lasting, something like evergreen forest, which will be there when you are dead. Such words should be used. Nobody expected Timotheus, like they never thought that how poem is beginning, they never thought that the poem will be ending this way. His poem always had a mystery to them. The same way a poetry of poet should have mystery overdone to it. By asking the reader, now here Pope is asking us to hear Timotheus' poems so we can understand how we can balance a mystery and simplicity in few lines of our poems. As it is, poems are not 300 words or 700 words. They are not essay, they are not prose, they are not novels and stories. Yet in few lines they tell us story of centuries. Same way Pope wants us to learn from Timotheus how to include mystery, a surprise ending in our poetry, how to tone, how to structure our words that will be there when we are dead. Thank you. I hope you understand the poem.